I want you to introduce yourself
hmm
and who you are,
hmm
what you do, what's your position at your job.
Sure. My name is Juliet Thomas. I am a senior creative development and scale manager at Amazon, and I work under the retail experience team for offline sales and marketing for Amazon devices. So Alexa devices or Kindles or tablets. And it's a really long title, but what it technically means is that I'm responsible for the creative look and feel, specifically for the Kindle category or e-reader category, and what that
Mhm.
looks like in an offline store setting. So a Best Buy, a Target, Kohl's, Home Depot. I have a degree in film production with an emphasis in cinematography and a minor in advertising. And I graduated a little bit longer ago from Chapman University in California. And I use my degree in film production and advertising as well to help kind of guide what I think would be the right visual representation in some of the digital spaces that we have, as the rest of my background is in digital marketing and digital merchandising.
So for this interview, it's mostly going to be about your film
For sure.
degree and what you did in film. My first question is, tell me about your background in film and what drew you to that film.
Yeah, it's a good question. I grew up really interested in photography. I think it started in like middle school, which was more around the time when I think phones and having like a portable camera in your pocket were a
Mhm.
little more applicable. But I definitely recall in like my middle school days just being really drawn to photography and the way that things look visually. Of course, at the same time, that was around like Instagram's birth. And so it was really
Mhm.
all about posting it and sharing it and socializing it. And in high school, I really got to kind of hone in on that craft a bit more, just personally taking some senior portraits of some of my friends, things like that. And at that time, as part of my development to get into college, my parents really encouraged me to participate in some summer programs. So I
Mhm.
participated in two summer film programs. One was at Emerson College in Boston. It was like a 4 week long program, and we created a bunch of small short films with just about 10 of us. It was really fun.
Mhm.
And then the following year, I did a program called SOCAPA, School of Performing and Creative Arts, I think, something like that. And that was based out of New York. And I also spent another 4 weeks or so in a, sleepaway board train session where we would essentially do a bunch of short films. I directed music videos and things like that. So between those two programs and just my general love for photography, I knew I wanted to go into film in college and study that. And while I was in college, it was great. I really enjoyed it. There's a lot of collaboration, a lot of working with many of my peers, which is really hard because it's really hard to, build your own little crew that you would sort of move from project to project. That was where I also declared for cinematography specifically because I felt like being visually representative behind the camera was where I where I really, surpassed my peers. And then it was about halfway through my college career progression where I picked up an advertising minor, and that's what really drew me in was being able to do like quick, short, succinct. I have a really short attention span, so movies are really hard for me. I love TV shows. Yeah, being able to, I think, get the advertising side of things and then getting a little bit more into the performance of your, like the media that you're creating is what actually led me into a career in social media graduating. So I did production, like media production for social media for a little while right after I graduated. And that I think was a little bit different than a lot of my peers who went into a traditional film. They went into the industry as production assistants or things like that. So I'm really happy with where it took me because I feel like, social media became extremely relevant. And this was, a good time for me to hone in on that. And I still got to express myself and direct and make a lot of production for, it was at the time a commercial landscape company. And then I went over into technology and I did social media work for Vizio and then moved more into digital marketing and digital advertising further in my career.
During your college experience, did you gain any skills? Because I really want to learn how to edit. But like, I feel like there's different types of way of editing. You can edit scripts, you can edit even in TV shows and in film. How did those editing skills also help you with social media?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
See, it's a two-in-one type of question. Like,
We had a lot of fundamental classes that we had to take. So, like you're mentioning, editing 101, even things like production design 101, taking classes on how to learn how to do production design for set. And then another class that I took was a graphic design class. So, of those classes, classes, I learned a ton of programs. I learned like even 3D modeling with 3D Max or Mudbox. I learned, InDesign and Illustrator for the graphic design side of things. For editing, it was one of the high school programs I took that taught me Final Cut Pro 7. And then I moved into Premiere. They wanted us to work with Avid. I personally don't like Avid, but that's just my take. But I learned a million programs in all those classes. So a lot of hard skills in terms of getting familiar. And my preference right now in working professionally is the Adobe Creative Suite. I think it's really comprehensive and it does exactly what I need to do. But on the editing side, we learned the program, which was fantastic, but also what to look for. So understanding a couple of fundamental rules of, when you're doing like a script supervisor on set, somebody who's
Mhm.
making sure that you're accurate to what you're going to be editing in the future. Skill sets like those were really important for when I go out and build social content to make sure that I'm
Mm.
capturing what I will need to have in the editing bay later on.
So let's say when you were in the film crew, what position would you particularly take?
I mostly operated under the camera, so I was either the director of photography or assistant camera. There were a couple times I did some unit production management, which was a little more, I'm really organized. That was kind of enjoyable to plan the timing and the schedule and crafty and all that stuff. I definitely did some grip work around, just getting my hands dirty and making sure I'm on set with a bunch of people. I think there were a couple opportunities earlier in college where I did some directing, which I
Mhm.
enjoyed, but I just found myself wanting to see what it looked like visually and be in control of that.
Mhm.
So, I kind of found my way in there and then pretty much just under the camera.
So with advertising, is it better than film handling the camera?
It's totally personal opinion. I just find, particularly actually, what kind of like steered me in the direction of advertising was when we were doing some of the production work for like, starting in college where it was all just like onesie twosies. And I think I ended up shooting, it was a cinematography 101 class. And I think I ended up shooting like 8 or 9 productions in a semester just because it was quick, right? In that, I felt I was most inspired and interested in the music video content that we were producing.
Yeah.
Knowing that music videos aren't really as relevant anymore, it's more like I got into this kind of really tiny category of making like sizzle reels. Like I loved being able to go out and shoot a bunch of footage and come back, put it all together with some music, and then spit it out as an advertisement. So I worked for our college's no, not creative, career development center where students would learn how to, get careers and get connected with internships. And I did their social media while I was in school, and it was awesome. I would go to all these events and I would, film a bunch of job fairs, film, when we did pop-up tents around campus, and then I would
Mhm.
just out these little productions with some music behind it, which did it sell the career center? Probably not, but I really liked it. I had a lot of fun with it and I felt really empowered by the work that I was doing. So knowing that, that's where I was like, okay, advertising is where this lies. Social media started to come about as kind of a space that could be commercialized at the same time too. So I think I just had really good timing, to be honest. It worked out
Perfect.
because now you can major in social media in some places.
Being in college and having your film degree, did you ever have a chance to do study abroad?
I did a very short
Mhm.
stint. We had a program that was, I think it was called like Film Around the World, but it wasn't around the world. It was just these programs where you would go to different places. So my course that we took was over a 2-week period. We went to London and Paris, where we got to see international production sets and production companies, see how those work. In hindsight, it was a little weird because they just kept telling us, hey, you would definitely need a work visa to work for us. So it wasn't really anything of prospecting to actually work for these companies, but it was
Mhm.
interesting to see a lot of these kind of production houses. They're very small, they're very boutique. I enjoyed it. It was nice. Plus, then you get to go to London and Paris. It was really cool. We
Yeah.
did a week in each. It was a little cold, but it was nice.
Did you have to create a lot of films or was it just one or was it
No.
more learning?
It was a lot, but as I moved from grade level to grade level, they
Mhm.
became more advanced and less in quantity. So the beginning of college was all, quick 1 week turnaround, go out and shoot a short film with no dialogue. Go out and shoot, a music video or, something like that, or a 3-part series of episodes. Those were kind of the things I did my freshman year. Same thing with our screenwriting class. It was, a script a week and they were short, right? They were just little things, but they're just to get you comfortable with writing and feeling like these are okay if they're not good. And then as we progressed, they sort of got more more advanced in what was being produced. And in my junior year, we did 4 major productions that you would be a part of each, I think it was each semester or total. And then your senior year, you have 2 theses. As a cinematography emphasis, I had to be the director of photography on 2 thesis films. So that was kind of our completion of, because the directors would direct 1, cinematographers would be the DP on 2. I think producers would produce 2. There were 5 elements of the film production degree that you could major in. So it's directing, cinematography, editing, producing, and production design. So I think, and the cinematography class was small. Most people went into directing, and then I think I had maybe like 20, 25 students in my focus. So, there were plenty of productions to go around for everybody. And there were even less people that majored in editing. Editing is an unsung hero. I tell you, like, if you can learn to be a good editor, you can do a lot with that. You can be so versatile. You do not have to stick with the film industry. You can go into social. You could go into internal productions. Like, think about a company like Amazon, where the amount of video production that goes into internal content that's shared throughout the organization for training, for, onboarding, for even advertising, for recruiting, things like that. There is a whole production team that is just internally designed to focus on the company. So, there's a million things you can do with editing if you get into that.
Can you tell me one thing that you learned from your experience in film, and you can say advertising?
Not to be a Debbie Downer, I learned that I don't want to go into the film industry because it was
Mm,
a very different lifestyle than I wanted, which it totally works for some people and it totally
mhm.
doesn't for me. I think that was one of the biggest things that I learned in my film degree, was that I didn't want to go into making movies. On a like an actual answer note, I think one of the biggest things I learned, this is a really good question. Yeah. I mean, honestly, and again, this isn't something I learned in a class, but it is all about building your own crew or getting a part of a
Mm,
crew and then like using that network to get around to other different productions. You're almost building just a personal resume of like a contact list and being able to say, I worked on this production, this production, this production, or I worked with so and so and so and so. That'll get you a million times further than any little short sizzle reel of the work that you've done, just because it's a much stronger, like networked industry than
yeah.
I think most, where, you rely on a resume. And then I would say the other thing too, actually, you know what? One of my favorite projects that we had to do in an advertising class was build a visual creative resume. And so I have a short, like 1 minute, it's very outdated, but I have like a short 1 minute sizzle reel of myself where it shows about like, here's all the stuff that I've done, but also I'm organized. Here are all the events I've planned, or here are all
Mhm.
the social media followings that I've grown, or here's all the tools I use, Photoshop, InDesign, Illustrator, la da 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 da.
Question. What is the lifestyle of film and like cinematography?
Why I didn't like it, and this is again, it's totally personal preference. It is many months on, few months off. So you have to be comfortable with a very flexible schedule. You'll generally be working up to about 6 out of 7 days a week. You'll have 1 day off, just because the productions are so huge and the amount of people that need to be dedicated and resourced for every film. That's
Mhm.
why they're so, I don't want to say vicious is the wrong word, but that's why their timelines are so aggressive. So it's just a lot of long-hour days for a very long time, and some people get such a thrill from that. I don't. I love sleep. Uh, but that doesn't, and like I say that very specifically for like the movie production industry.
Yeah.
Some cases as well for shows, shooting shows like a Game of Thrones or White Lotus, where they're, essentially like a 10 episode long movie, will also
Mhm.
fall into that same kind of category. But there's a lot of shows that are episodic. So thinking of like sitcoms or things like that on the TV side that are more like regular schedules. Also, sports film is definitely, I think, a category that people kind of forget. You think there was a girl I saw on TikTok who did a day in a life of shooting social media content for the NFL. If I find her, I'll send her to you because she's
Mhm.
awesome. Long, long days. She works very long days when it's game day, but then she rests. And so she kind of has like a baby film schedule where everything is really like, okay, I need to collect as much content as I can right now in this time. And then over the next couple days, I'll sit and I'll edit it together and share and share and share. But those kind of things, even if you ever watch live sports broadcasting, you have to consider the amount of people that are behind the scenes that are capturing and in an hour are putting together a really short 15-second sizzle reel of what happened in the game that you just watched. Crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's my advice.
This is the end of my interview. I'm so grateful for you taking
Yeah.
the time out your day to be
Mhm,
able to sit here and talk with me.
mhm.
And yeah,
For
thank
sure.
you.